Why can't Amazon make a good video game? That's a question that we've been asking for quite a while. So yeah, um, let's go and watch that.
I wouldn't be surprised if a large part of the general gaming public is not aware of Amazon's fairly recent venture into games development.
Yes.
3 AAA titles have been worked on, and 2 of them have already been released and almost immediately cancelled.
Where are all my homies that played New World at? New World looked kind of cool, but when will that game release? Didn't they say 2021 or 2020 initially, right? And then it got delayed.
But how? The tech giant isn't exactly known for struggling in its respective fields. Amazon owns one of the largest online marketplaces, runs one of the biggest server infrastructure spaces, and owns the most popular streaming site. So why can't the tech giant make a decent game?
You could ask the exact same thing about Google Stadia. So yeah, very, very weird how Google and Amazon both can't figure out how to make, a decent game / decent game studios. It's weird.
Let's find out. This is Amazon Game Studios. Amazon Start in Games goes beyond just selling physical copies on its marketplace. Launched in 2004, Amazon Web Services, most commonly referred to as just AWS, was the company's cloud server infrastructure that was sold to anyone that needed web, domain, and eventually game server hosting. Over the years, Amazon kept scaling up its infrastructure.
This is why Amazon is one of the biggest companies in the world, not necessarily because of their actual how do you call it, marketplace, Amazon.com. It's actually because of AWS, Amazon Web Services. It's insane. Like half the internet, I think Netflix, Spotify, Dropbox all run on AWS, and Twitch of course as well. So if there's an AWS outage, half of the internet is basically down. So that's pretty crazy.
Infrastructure, and in 2020, its web services division made Amazon over $46 billion in revenue. While it may be common knowledge that much of the internet is hosted on Amazon servers, it may be less known that a lot of popular games are hosted in Amazon's landscape as well. Gearbox, Bethesda, Capcom, Nexon, Activision, and Epic Games, to name a few, all use Amazon's infrastructure as a way to keep millions of people playing online together at the same time. Thanks to this, the transition from game hosting to game creation likely felt like the logical next step for Amazon's then CEO, Jeff Bezos, and would pair nicely with Amazon's acquisition of Twitch TV in 2014.
Yes.
Amazon Game Studios was founded in 2012. To begin, the studio started recruiting developers for mobile social games, and in the same year, the company released Living Classics, a social game on the Facebook platform. While the title itself
Daryl, Stadia is still alive. It's just on the decline / it will probably die within a year because they dissolved all their game studios, the Stadia game studios, and the streaming service is just trash.
wasn't anything groundbreaking. It had a small and decent reception, but it was a far cry from what the tech giant wanted to be doing. 2 years later, in 2014, Amazon announced that it would be making full-fledged PC games.
That was really cool.
To help with this endeavor, they recruited some top gaming talent. Notable names like Kim Swift from the development of Portal and Clint Hawking from Far Cry 2 started to generate interest in the studio. Amazon continued allocating resources, opening 2 more studios in California, and bringing on even more talent like Richard Hilleman from the Madden series and John Smedley of EverQuest fame. With these titans of industry at the helm, it felt like Amazon was approaching.
Anybody ever played EverQuest? That's a name that's like late or early, like around the turn of the millennium, right? That's an OG game. Damn, EverQuest. Cool name though.
This the right way. Surely, with the resources of Amazon at the disposal of these game development vets, the possibility of failure was minimal. Right? In 2016 at TwitchCon, Amazon Game Studios announced 3 games. A multiplayer sandbox MMO named New World, a 12-player class-based shooter named Crucible, and a 4v4 arena-based brawl sport game titled Breakaway. However, all was no longer rosy. While developers were reportedly paid very competitively, many stories began coming out about individuals being ignored and there being rampant sexism throughout the company. Soon, most of these fancy hires would leave Amazon, citing their conflicting principles about game.
Damn, sexism or like sexual harassment was very widely spread in the gaming industry. It's crazy. Crazy, yeah. If you think about it, really.
design and the business way that Amazon likes to approach things. A former anonymous employee would be quoted saying this in a Bloomberg profile by Jason Schreier and Priya Anand. Quote, Amazon does hire experts from various industries, but they expect those folks to adopt to the Amazon way. End quote. There was a common thread between all of the issues that were reported. Mike Frazzini. In the Bloomberg report, several current and former employees describe how the head of Amazon Game Studios held back meaningful progress. Quote, he frequently told staff that every Amazon game needed to be a billion-dollar franchise and then understaffed the projects. Instead of using industry-standard development tools, Frazzini insisted Amazon build its own, which might have saved the company money if the software ever worked properly.
Well, why would you do that? Come on.
End quote. While ambition isn't a bad thing to have in the industry, and in one like PC games especially, perhaps realistic goals would have suited the brand new studio better. However, it was likely because Amazon had every other part of the gaming market already perfected that this ambition was perpetuated. They had the...
Did Amazon really perfect the gaming market with Twitch? They basically just bought the de facto monopolists, and no other company has bothered to since you know, compete with them. Even like YouTube hasn't really tried that so far. I mean, technically you could say YouTube Gaming, but that's not a real competitor. So did Amazon really do anything major with that? I don't know. Wouldn't say no, actually. I would say no, actually.
Server hosting, which allowed them to make large-scale multiplayer games, and they had the marketing supergiant in Twitch. All that was left was the games themselves. The first of the three games, Breakaway, was designed as a fantasy class-based sports game, where players in two teams of 4 try to score the ball on each other's goal. Each player controlled a...
I've never heard of Breakaway. Why have I never heard of Breakaway?
Hero that had unique abilities that allowed the player to achieve this faster and better. Players could build structures such as turrets, healing shrines, or walls to aid them as well. One of the big marketed features was tight Twitch integration. Broadcast Match Builder invited streamer followers to games. Broadcast Spotlights let players know when their match was being streamed. Plugins for streams would show stats about the game in real time. And there was even a service that let streamers run polls and place bets with in-game currencies. Unfortunately for Amazon Game Studios' first PC game, the reception was lukewarm. And only a year later, in October 2017, Amazon put the game on development hiatus, claiming...
Why? 2017? I've never heard of this game. What the fuck? Where was I in 2017? AFK, huh?
To be retooling the gameplay. 5 months later, at the end of March 2018, Amazon Game Studios announced the indefinite stop to Breakaway's development. Quote, there was just one problem. Breakaway wasn't fun. It was stressful, actually. Too onerous a combination of fast and thinky, and just unfamiliar enough to put people off. The core gameplay was confusing, one former Amazon Game Studios employee recalled. It was hard to track what was happening. YouTube videos of the esports matches were viewed on average just north of 100 times. Amazon couldn't even find enough people to beta test the game for free. Within 9 months of the battle on high seas, Breakaway had been cancelled. The company announced the news on Reddit in a post that elicited 34 comments. The game died with
No, 35 upvotes, right? 35 upvotes. Oh, 355 members. Oh my god.
Elicited 34 comments. The game died with barely a whimper. End quote. Even though the game never got past a public alpha, some attribute this particular failure to Amazon's lesser-known Steam competitor, the Twitch Game Store, which launched in...
Anybody remember the Twitch Game Store? Ah, fuck, I should turn off the sound alerts for the video recording. I'm sorry for everybody on YouTube. Remember the Twitch launcher when they tried to compete with Steam? Where they sold game keys? Remember that, anybody?
August of 2017 and was quickly shelved in November of the following year. Quote, the idea would allow Amazon to avoid paying a 30% sales commission to Steam, the most popular storefront for PC games. Twitch employees weren't thrilled because Amazon did not have any big games for which to attract shoppers. Frazzini's employees assigned to collaborate on the project protested because bypassing Steam would shrink their market. Withholding a game from Steam, they argued, is the equivalent of refusing to sell a book on Amazon.
Yep. Holy shit, that's true.
The next game to release out of the tech giant was Crucible, a free-to-play, multiplayer third-person shooter. Because Breakaway never technically launched, Crucible, released in May 2020, was actually the studio's first big-budget PC game that released. With its sci-fi theming, Crucible is an alphabet soup of pretty much every popular genre on the market. Team hero shooting elements from something like Overwatch, a battle arena format like League of Legends.
It just looks so generic. Oh, look at this gameplay. Anthem, Overwatch, Apex, I don't know.
And a battle royale mode similar to something like Fortnite. It certainly ticked off every box it needs to compete in today's market, and it was oddly timed up to be competing with Valorant as well. With Twitch marketing this time for
that turned out good, surely, for Crucible, Kappa.
For sure, Amazon finally
oh no,
had
ad. People prepare. Ad. Hashtag ad, guys. What a great game.
Hands. As you may already know at this point, a surefire success Crucible was not. By spring of 2020, the Battle Royale was a cliché, and while some enjoyed the blending of familiar genres, to others it was a poor amalgamation of popular
48.
titles. Most reviews focused on this aspect of the game specifically. The game ended up leaning towards a MOBA instead of a hero shooter, but did not have any MOBA-based defined roles to encourage team play.
Is this a shotgun? Whoa.
Characters had fairly novel designs, but were all self-sufficient, letting you go your own way and capture objectives without any coordination needed. The Battle Royale mode felt tacked on, and was in the same map that the other two game modes were located in as well. While some Twitch integration features were promised, the game launched with none. It was even lacking any sort of voice comm system. All of this pointed towards the conclusion that Crucible was somewhere in between unfinished, uninspired, and just plainly uninteresting.
Holy shit.
At launch, over 10,000 people downloaded the title, and it even
Hey, is this guy using... This guy's using DaVinci Resolve. Because of that glitch that you just saw.
Over 120,000 views on Twitch. However,
hey, what's up,
both
Layla?
of these numbers would sharply drop.
Rip.
This sharp drop was clearly not the multi-million-dollar success that Amazon intended it to be. And soon after, only 2 months later, Amazon Game Studios put the title back into closed beta. Only 3 months after, development of the title was announced to be cancelled. And the studio said that the developers were to move on to the last project at Amazon Game Studio.
New World.
New World.
Yep. Their last hope. Their last hope.
New World was an MMO, and out of the 3 titles, this one would leverage Amazon's cloud server architecture better than the rest. However, to be a successful MMO these days, you're going to need a lot more than just working servers.
Yep.
You don't need me to pull up stats to show that the massively multiplayer genre is not exactly in its heyday right now.
Yes.
Just the time investment that titles like that require is difficult to ask for.
The time investment is insane in these games. Dude, I'm so baffled that I actually played World of Warcraft Classic to like level 50 something. I'm baffled that I did that because that took like 200 hours. I don't know. It's crazy. MMOs just are insane time investments. That's why I think I play a lot of Rocket League at the moment, because there isn't a lot of necessarily time investment, because the game takes like 5 to 7, 8 minutes.
Or in a sea of round-based high-action titles that sweep the market today. That being said, a good game is still a good game, and if New World could overcome the nicheness of the genre, then this might be that multi-million-dollar hit that the megacorp was pining for. New World was originally pitched as a survival game where players play as colonists in a fictional version of 1600s America, fighting enemies that closely resembled indigenous people. When this insensitivity was pointed out to the higher-ups, it was allegedly met on deaf ears. Quote, "The disagreement, former employees say, fit a pattern of executives neglecting advice from staff." Despite this, the Native American imagery was eventually removed, and instead the game adopted an alternate fantasy history route but with similar undertones. Originally slated for a May 2020 release, the game was delayed to August of the same
May 2020. You know, of course, the pandemic, ripped up game development significantly with, Cyberpunk and everything. So you gotta at least give them some, leeway on that for the delays at least.
Year. Following a closed beta, players actually asked for the game to be delayed further, seeing potential in the title but foreseeing failure if it was released as is. Quote, "When we examined the feedback we received over the last several months from our alpha audience, we saw that players like the game, and they would like to see even more of it." End quote. This delay came around the same time that Crucible was canned. It was likely the combination of events that caused the studio want to make sure that this time they got it right. Unlike the previous two major titles from Amazon, New World actually borrows fairly little from its competitors. The aim is to be a player-driven sandbox MMO, with players controlling and fighting for territories in groups
Looks
called
pretty
companies. Inside those territories,
I mean, it's not as creative and like completely groundbreaking as Ashes of Creation. If you've never heard about Ashes of Creation, go check that out on YouTube. That game looks insane if that ever comes out. I mean, it kind of looks like the next Star Citizen a bit, but I hope it won't be. If you get that reference, you know.
you can control forts, and in certain places you may even purchase player housing. While
Hey Max,
there
have
are
a good
typical
dinner.
PvE
Bye-bye.
activities to do like running dungeons and crafting weapons, player-on-player interaction seems to be the focus. Joining one of the three main game factions will allow you to participate in faction-based PvP for additional rewards.
Yep.
The combat itself is also a far cry from typical MMO convention.
It's very different.
Adopting instead a standard third-person RPG type setup. You'll have to connect your attacks with hitboxes and dodge and block with a stamina meter. Not much more can be said about New Worlds before its release.
Yes.
But based off of early feedback, it does seem to be at least doing something interesting in its genre, something that was seldom mentioned about Amazon's previous two PC gaming ventures. Throughout the development of all three games, reports of mismanagement from the out-of-touch higher-ups continued to come out. Pretty much everything about Amazon Game Studios seemed to point to the fact that the tech giant was in a little over their heads.
Yep.
I don't think anybody claims that good video games are easy to make, and we are seeing living proof that throwing a ton of money on it doesn't seem to make it any easier. Even though all of Amazon Game Studio titles released with some drawback, the finished products were okay, but only just okay. Nothing groundbreaking.
Were they even okay? The one game didn't even make it out of alpha. The other game got released, then got back into beta, and then got cancelled. And the other one isn't even out yet. So were they even okay? I would say they were trash.
And nothing that shatters our preconceived notions of what games could be. It's clear that when Jeff Bezos and Mike Frazzini put this initial development into their games division, they expected great returns quickly. But maybe the corporate landscape of what Amazon is just isn't conducive to the creative freedom and cooperative development that good games need. We have seen
Probably.
similar struggles
Maybe.
with another major corporation, Google, which
Hey,
has also
there
had
you
problems
go.
launching their own games platform. To their credit, Amazon finally has what they were working towards: experience in games development. Hopefully the struggles of Breakaway and Crucible will lead New World to be something
True.
that is worth checking out. Amazon Game Studios still has a fair amount of unannounced projects in development, so there may be further hope still. All
Might
that
be,
being
yeah.
said, if there's anything that the troubled history of this studio tells us, it's that making good games takes more than
Ad
just
break.
a bottomless wallet.
Ad break. I think this is probably the outro. We're gonna watch this ad. Support creators. Hashtag support creators, guys. I think that's the video. Yep.
This video was made possible thanks
Hey,
to our
cool.
wonderful patrons.
He is a
huge
patron.
thank you to
Nice. It's good. It's good. Was a good video. Really enjoyed that. Was a very, very good video. We'll see about the future of New World and Stadia and Google and everything. So